I'm Susan Koenig, and this is Somatics for You. I'm going to be demonstrating a movement that I call hip hiking, moving into a more full lateral flexion. This is one of the go-to movements I usually give for home movement practice with my clients and people in my classes. So I'm just going to go through the different parts of it, and I hope you try it. So I'm going to start out on my back with my legs long, and just where my clients' legs are comfortable, where my legs are comfortable. And I'm going to be using Quadratus lumborum, deep muscle in the center of the body between the rib cage and the pelvis. And then I'm going to be moving out more laterally to my oblique muscles on the sides of my body. And I'm not sure how much you're going to be able to see in the first movement, but I'm actually going to be changing the level of my tops of my pelvis. So maybe if I have my hands here, that might help. So I'm going to hike my right hip. This right hip is coming up, this left hip is going down. I can clearly feel that on myself. And I slowly release and come back to neutral. Sometimes I have a client repeat that, hiking on the right, the left is getting long. I might do that 2 to 5 times on one side and then switch. And now I'm going to hike my left hip. My left hip is higher, my right hip is lower. Slowly come back to neutral. We're doing this self-pendicularly. And repeat, hiking my left hip, hiking on the left hip is higher, the right hip is lower. Coming back to neutral. Whatever amount I repeated on one side, I would repeat on the opposite side. Then I might do some variation. Sometimes it's easier for a client to do this with their knees bent. Same movement. I'm going to go back to the right. The buttock stays on the floor. I'm going to hike my right hip, slowly come out. I'll repeat one more time. Hike my right hip, slowly come out. Hike my left hip, slowly come out. One more time. Hike my left hip, slowly come out. I'm letting my spine be flexible, so there's some lateral movement in my spine. But now I'm going to widen my stance, and I'm going to bring my awareness more into my oblique muscles. My Quadratus lumborum is still going to play a role, but what I'll do is, with this more lateral stance, I'll be including much more of the whole lateral side of my body more consciously. So I'm going to hike my right hip, my right armpit comes down a little bit. I'm just going to let my head and neck do what they want. My head wants to roll to the right. And I'll slowly release. If I was going to do a complete lateral flexion even in the head and neck, I would, as I hiked my hip, I would actually bring my ear towards my hip. That I have to do more consciously with a little bit more friction in the back of my head. So usually I just do lateral flexion and let my head roll. And now I'm going to laterally flex to the left. I'm more consciously getting the whole left side involved. My head wants to roll left. My left armpit is coming down a little bit to meet my left hip. I'm much more in my obliques, a little bit in my quadratus, but it's much more lateral. And slowly come out. I might vary this even more and bring my legs in closer together. And when I do that and I hike my hip, I'm hiking my right hip, Now I'm closer to my midline, and if I keep my knees straight as I do this move, I'm again hiking on the right. I'm even closer to my psoas. Still getting quadratus. Less in my obliques, but some more towards the center, deep muscles in the center of my body. And then I'm going to go back to just what feels like the normal place I want my feet to be, and I'm just going to go back, and I'm hiking my right hip coming out, hiking my left hip, and coming out. Now in the Somatics book, Tom Hanna has us make an X, and he calls it the X pattern, and I can hike my right hip, shorten my whole right side. Again, my head wants to roll to the right, and my left arm and leg lengthen because my left hip is going down. I'm creating more space between my left hip and my left armpit. And I can come back to center. I can shorten my left side. My left side is shorter, and that lengthens my right side. And I can do all kinds of focusing. I can focus more on an arm going long or short, or a leg, hip hiking or going long. And I just start to do what feels comfortable. One variation I like a lot, I usually do this with my arms down, and I call this suck towards your heart, your metaphysical heart. And I'm going to roll my right leg in, and I'm going to suck my thigh as if it could come right toward my heart. I'm shortening my right side, but it's very central in my awareness. And then I let that release. I might repeat that a few times. I roll my left leg in, and now I suck my left thigh toward my heart. I just let my body follow along. I'm getting quite a shortening in the center of my body and close to my midline. I let that release. And then sometimes I will lengthen. I'm lengthening my right side, jetting my right heel long. I'm doing that by shortening my left side. And release. And now I'm lengthening my left side, jetting my heel long. I'm doing that by shortening my right side. And sometimes after I've done a series where I have focused on what I'm shortening, I focus a little bit on what I'm lengthening, but with awareness that I'm getting that length because something is shortening. In this case, it's my left side. And I'll do that a few times. I may alternate back and forth. Oh, that feels really good. And then I rest. Gaining control of the sides of our body is really important. A lot of us as adults have lost our side-to-side motion. It's important for walking. It's important for many, many movements. I hope you try this. Thank you.